Hi everybody, Cher here with you. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm really excited to be sharing with you a third recipe that I'm going to be adding to my Christmas baking extravaganza playlist. If you haven't had a chance to check those other recipes out, I will insert the link for that. Make sure you head on over and check those out. They are awesome recipes. They're recipes that are tried and true. I make them every single year. And this next recipe that I'm sharing with you today is Toblerone Shortbread cookies. And these are amazing. So make sure you stay tuned so I can show you how to put these together. So the list of ingredients for these cookies is actually really small. There isn't a whole lot to these cookies. Of course, the most important part is your Toblerone chocolate bar. And this is the kind I like to get, this one that has the honey and almond nougat. And this is a 360-gram bar. And these are actually on sale this week at my local Walmart anyways. And they were $6 something, I believe. So look around, make sure you get a good deal on one of your chocolate bars here because they can be a little pricey. I've seen them for like up towards $10. So yeah, make sure you find a good deal on that. You're also, of course, you can't make shortbread without butter. You're going to need 2 cups of butter, and I'm using the unsalted kind. You're also going to need some sugar. Now, the recipe actually calls for berry sugar. This is actually a very fine sugar, which I think just helps dissolve in the butter a little bit better than just regular granulated sugar. So I have made it in the past with granulated sugar, and it worked just fine, but I happen to have some of this on hand, so I'm going to go ahead and use what it actually calls for. So you're going to need 1 cup of sugar. Now the flour, you need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, and I've pre-sifted this already, and you also need a 1/2 cup of rice flour. And I've sifted that in here with the other flour as well. Now the rice flour I actually found in my bulk section at Save on More Foods, but I'm sure you can get it in any of the major grocery stores now, pretty much carry rice flour, so shouldn't have a problem. And then the last thing you're going to need is just a little bit of icing sugar, and all this is used for is just to dust the cookies after they're all baked and all done, so you don't need a whole lot of that. So let me show you how to go ahead and put these together. So the first step is to beat our butter until it's really nice and light. Now, if you have a KitchenAid, by all means use it. My poor KitchenAid has been getting a real workout, especially the Christmas season. It gets used a lot. But if you don't have one, I mean, you can totally do this by hand as well. It's just going to take you a lot of elbow grease to get it nice and light and to get the cookie dough all mixed together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put my room temperature butter. I'm going to cut it up into smaller pieces so that it'll be a little bit easier for my machine to start kind of mixing. I've had this sitting on the counter all afternoon, so it's nice and soft, which is what you want. So there we go. Perfect. And I'm just going to put my little beater on here. And here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this till it's nice and fluffy, probably for a good 5 minutes or so. Alright, so my butter's been beating for quite some time and it is really nice and light and fluffy. So now the next step is to gradually add our fine sugar here, and we're going to let that mix in for a good 5 minutes too because we want this to get really well dissolved into the butter. So I'm just going to add this gradually here. So I'm going to go ahead and let that mix away for a good 5 minutes, and when I come back I'll show you what the next step is. Okay, so this has been mixing for a good 5 minutes and it is really well combined now. The next step is to gradually add our pre-sifted flour. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to turn this on a really low speed so that it doesn't fluff all over the place. There we go. We'll just add a little bit at a time. So you could totally do this by hand, but it would be a lot of work. So as soon as you start to hear your machine kind of bogging down, you want to make sure you turn it up a little bit. You don't want to burn out the motor. Almost got all the flour in here now. almost there. Okay. There we go. It's really starting to come together there now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this out. So I'm just going to take all the dough off my little paddle here and make sure everything is all combined. I'll scrape down the sides and yeah, and I'll show you what the next step is. So I just went ahead and I took everything out of my KitchenAid bowl and I just dumped it into the bowl that I had my flour in. And I'm just going to give it one last little stir here just to make sure all the flour is incorporated. It looks pretty good. Now the next step is to cut up our Toblerone chocolate bar. So I'm going to do that now. We'll just put that aside. So I took the chocolate bar out of its packaging, and this is what it looks like in case you haven't ever seen a Toblerone chocolate bar before. You got these little triangles here, which are kind of cool. So what you're going to do is you're just going to cut all these little triangles apart. So you need a good heavy-duty knife to do that. And just chop them all apart. And then what you're going to do is take one of these little triangle segments and you're going to cut this into probably about 3 or 4 chunks. And don't worry about all the little bits and pieces of chocolate that are going to be left on your cutting board, because we're going to use all the little scraps and little bits and pieces and we're going to put them in with our cookie dough. We don't want to waste any of that. So I just sort of take my knife, and this is about the size of the chunk you're going to want. We're actually going to put this big chunk of chocolate right on top of the cookie when we get it all shaped and ready to bake. And then just get a couple more cut here. And anything that kind of shaves off and makes a big mess, like I said, don't worry about that. So there's a couple more chunks. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get these all cut up. And when I come back, we're going to shape our cookie dough and put them onto the cookie sheets. So I finished chopping up my chocolate bars. So I got quite a few pieces here. And then this leftover stuff, I'm just going to cut up nice and fine. And then I'm going to add this right into our cookie dough. We don't want to waste any of this yumminess. Oh my gosh. Of course I had to have a little taste already. It's so good. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and just put this right into the bowl here. And give this a bit of a stir. All right, so now we can start shaping our cookies here. So I'm going to go ahead and get a bit of dough here, and I like to just use my hands to shape them. So you're going to look for something about that size, kind of like a meatball kind of size, and you don't need to worry about pre-greasing your cookie sheets, because when you're using this much butter in a recipe, there's no need to do that. It's one good thing about using lots of butter, I guess. So yeah, so we're going to keep rolling until they're all filled out here. And then basically all you need to do is just take a chunk of your little Toblerone chocolate here. Let me just move this out of the way so you can see. And I'm going to push it right onto the top of the cookie like that. So it kind of indents a little bit. But other than that, I'm not going to flatten out the cookie at all. It's only going to get flattened a little bit just by pushing that little piece of chocolate in there. And that's basically it. And then these are going to bake, like I said, it's 325. Probably check them in about 10 to 15 minutes. Watch them kind of closely. You want to just make sure they're getting just a nice light brown. So I'm going to go ahead and get these all plated up, and I'll show you what they look like right before I put them all into the oven. So this is the first batch, just ready to go into the oven here. So I'll see you back in about 15 minutes, and we should have some beautifully nice golden brown, yummy Toblerone shortbread cookies. So I've just taken the cookies out of the oven. Oh my gosh, I wish you guys could smell how amazing it is in here right now. Holy cow. So this is what your cookies should look like when they're done. I ended up baking these for about anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. I think it was about 17 actually. Everybody's oven is different, so you're gonna have to make sure you watch them really closely. So this is what you're looking for, a nice golden brown on the bottom and just slightly browned around the outside. And of course the top is just a little bit browned as well, but that's kind of what you're looking for. You don't want to overdo them. You don't want them to get too brown. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let them cool on a cooling rack, which I have here. And I just put a cookie sheet underneath because I am going to dust these with some icing sugar once they cool down a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just get these all onto my cooling rack, let them cool for a few minutes, and then I'll come back and show you what they look like when they're all dusted with icing sugar. So my cookies have been cooling for quite a bit now. They're cooled to the touch for sure. So now I can go ahead and put my icing sugar on. You definitely want to make sure that they are cooled enough though, because as soon as you put this on, if they're too hot, it's just going to melt, and you want the sugar to kind of stay on top. It just makes them look really pretty. So basically I'm just gonna shake a little bit of this right on top of them. And this just finishes them off and makes them look so pretty. So you can put as much or as little as you want. I kind of like to make them look like it snowed. There we go. So look at that. There is our Toblerone Shortbread cookie. Oh my gosh, these are amazing. You definitely want to try these. They are a big hit if you take them anywhere for sure, for any time over the holidays. So that's everything for today. Hope you guys have enjoyed this recipe share. Make sure you stay tuned. There's a couple more to come. And until next time, happy baking, everybody.